Right, what about this? I thought an interesting topic we could talk about now is, since Crumbs obviously works on the LCS broadcast, Zabatine has been in the LCS, he's obviously back in Europe now, it's traditionally European. I want to know, actually, from a broadcast philosophy perspective, where people are going to come down on this. Because as people will have seen, the LEC, one of the approaches they take that's actually quite unique is, even though actually LCS has had, they had like Tyler Watt on an episode and stuff, in general, LCS doesn't go as much for sort of like the special guest angle. It's more the same group of people and talent rotated, and then maybe occasionally they have a pro player, or like I said, in that case, it was like a one-off that they had Tyler Watt on. But LEC actually has shown, basically, for the last 2 years, a commitment to bringing in different people you've never seen on LEC before. So obvious examples would be people from other games, like from CSGO, they had Frankie and Machine and some of these people. They've had now a bunch of people who were like casters from other regions. If people remember back in the day, Pappy Smithy came on. LS was on for an episode. They've even had Ashley fucking like Skype/Zoom in to do interviews on. So they've obviously shown this commitment, right, to like trying to essentially add like variety, have a bit of spice on the broadcast, make it different week to week. But where they've actually, the first time I've ever seen them seemingly put a foot wrong is one of the people they announced this week would be on the LEC and would even be casting a game was this guy called thebausffs, who, if people don't know, he's a streamer. And the reason it's a little bit of a controversial topic, as far as I can tell, is based on what you've seen from the guy on Reddit, because I didn't know much about him because I don't follow streams much, Crumbs. So I myself had only really ever seen this guy mentioned in like those famous threads where, like, for example, he got banned by Reddit because it looked like he was like feeding on a game. I think it was like 0 and 10 or something, And then obviously, as far as I've been told, he's a streamer where it's just an entertainment stream. He's not there to try and be the best and win on the most meta thing. He's like to play whatever he wants, but he's a challenger player. So the problem, as far as I can tell, is a couple of pro players in the league, like I saw Upset and Promiscu essentially implied this. They sort of like were a bit, they took this as an affront because their take was sort of like, this guy just ints on stream, and first of all, like, Upset's take was almost like, what, and now Riot like fucking co-signs that and brings you on the broadcast. And then Promiscu's angle was more like, imagine being an up-and-coming caster, and then you're sat at home like, God, I wish I could cast LEC, and then you just see a fucking streamer on. Like, I mean, the analogy would be, imagine if you were like the next best great caster in America, and you were like, I wish I could be LCS, and it was like, casting the next game is Shin and Tyler One. You'd be like, what am I even wasting my time for? So, like, those two takes are interesting, because I don't know enough what the bout's got to know if any of them are accurate, but I saw there was some pushback. So, like, Zabatine, do you actually know much about this guy, thebausffs? Can you give me any insight?
I mean, I'm not a huge.
I've got some insight. I've got some insight on him that I think is what made him a choice for this week, or for just the LEC in general, was MSI. Because when MSI rolled around, he was one of these streamers who, as an entertaining streamer, people love to watch the solo queue matches that happen between all the pros in the world coming into the US and trying to play there. And so he was actually playing against some of these best players and was making a lot of noise for players that are like, hey, look, he's beating up on these pros, like Showmaker can't handle him, right? These kinds of things were making waves. And so it was interesting for the audience to see, hey, look, like our streamers are having a good time against these pro players. So I think that was the initial interest for the LEC. Is like, hey, an international tournament is being recognized, or a streamer is being recognized for his ability during an international competition. And so I think from that, they thought, hey, maybe we could do something with thebausffs. I see like Kadrill mentioned him a bunch, LEC caster. So I think that was the initial idea behind having him on. And I mean, on the point of LCS doing it, I feel like, I mean, we have had Tyler One and Yasuo on the show, not as a caster before, but I do think that a big part of it is that these NA streamers are much more expensive. If there was anyone that actually was good at casting, and I'm not sure if thebausffs is good as casting, I'm not hearing his game today, but if he's good, then it really won't matter. But you probably don't have to pay him nearly as much as you'd have to pay the LCS streamers. Like the LCS streamers that you have to bring onto the studio and actually pay are going to be so much more costly than the ones that you're going to find for the LEC. So if it's an interest in diversifying or just adding more to the roster, LEC, I feel like they're getting a pretty decent deal from this. It's not going to be like Tyler One. Like, that's going to cost you so much, and they usually only do it for finals.
What do you think, Zabatine? Obviously, you can go any angle you want on this, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like, just culturally, I think Americans, when you watch traditional sports, like they really like to see the same faces, which is very weird for Europeans that like have a bunch of guests in any kind of set, like sports set. I think LEC has done a very, very interesting job at like trying to diversify their approach depending on the day. Like they want to talk about something and they just try to bring kind of a group of people on the desk that's just gonna kind of be able to bring the whole idea alive and work around it. Whereas I think that's and they don't really care like who's gonna be. Like sometimes it's just a player, sometimes it's a coach, sometimes it's gonna be. And like we had segments. I remember in LCS, I did it once, I think, where I was on the desk, but it was like. I would have loved to do it like once every other week, and a lot of players would actually love to do it. It's just I think just a cultural thing of like just bringing pieces and trying to get like some fresh air here and there. It's the same thing in terms of segments where I feel like LEC has much more diverse. I would say much more frequent segments where like NA really love this desk. You know, they like the desk, they like the being there with like the face of like the analysis and the face of the hosting and just talk together. So I feel like in that sense, LEC is always going to have an edge, at least to my humble perspective, because I feel like it's much more fresh. From what Scrum said, I think you don't need to bring people that has a massive audience. Like you don't really need to bring Pokemon or Ninja on the analysis desk to get something exciting. And like for instance, the case of Alorim, that's like was very good when he was a player, and even like switched to the desk after. And people such as Emily, like Emily was great. Like she just didn't start being great like last year. Like she has been great for many years as a journalist, and she has great ideas about the game. It's just a matter of trying to bring different people. And in that sense, I feel like LCS is so conservative for a reason I kind of miss, because you can't tell me like, oh, I'm gonna bring, I don't know, you're gonna bring Meteos to the desk, like it's gonna cost you as much as like the BAUSS or LS for LEC. I don't think like Meteos is gonna cost you as much, and I feel like it would bring like an insane value to the broadcast. So in that sense, I feel like sometimes gonna backfire, because I mean the BAUSS can be an inter and players hate the inters, but I feel like it's so much more valuable for your show in the long term to try these things than being conservative and try to get only people that everybody's gonna like, because these players are big streamers and big streamers are extremely expensive. So you just never do anything. I don't know if you agree with me, but that's my take on it.
I mean, one of the issues I have is like you sort of backed into the take actually I have, which goes like when people use the example like Promiscu did there of like, you know, imagine if you're like an up and coming caster, it's like, bro, that applies like if they had you on the show, like because you played support in LEC, you get to be on the analyst desk instead of like a true analyst. Like, wouldn't that apply to you, mate? But the problem is pro players will never take that into account. They all think that they know more than everyone fucking else for something. A lot of them do at least. So I will say there's already that sort of like elephant in the room if you're a pro player, in my opinion. Like I've seen some people on the LCS desk, crumbs, that were like, get this guy the fuck off. Like he wasn't even good at the game, never mind talking about it. But I won't name names there. But I'll say this. The problem is, as I said, I don't know what the BAUSS, like I don't follow streaming, unfortunately. So the problem is I can only go off like the threads I've seen. Like if based on the threads I've seen, it's someone who's more like in the vein of just an entertainer and he's, you know, like he doesn't care if he feeds or whatever. Like, yeah, if that's true and he's done on the LEC, that seems a bit cynical. Like they're just doing it for like the, wow, look at this guest star on wrestling. Like that sounds a bit like you're doing it just for like the pop of a bit of variety, right? But if it actually turns out the guy, like as Zabatine says, for all I know, the fact that he's been a US challenger a billion times and apparently like if he can essentially be good enough to get into challenger over and over again in a competitive ladder and then chooses to he probably is good at the game. So maybe he's going to bring a different perspective I don't know about. Maybe he has super good insight. Like if people don't know, spoiler if you watch any of my shows, I obviously like the idea of giving people who haven't had a chance a break and seeing if they're any good. And I'll throw in there as well, it's just a one-off appearance. Like, it would be different if he was like the new caster and you were like a fucking up-and-coming caster. You're like, what the hell? He got the gig? If he's only doing like one day or something, I don't think that's a big a deal, you know? Like, as I say, some of the other people I've come on the show didn't even come from fucking League of Legends, so shouldn't the same thing apply to them? Like, so I think this one's a little bit of what we in England call like a storm in a teacup. It's not really that big a deal, is it? Like, it's fairly minor. Like, of all the things people are getting mad at this week, was there just nothing left and they had to just pick this one? Because I don't see that much drama in this one myself.
It's because the CLG rage just didn't get fully satisfied. Like,
yes.
it wasn't fully resolved, so we needed to find something else to be upset about.
It feels like it.
Random streamer says join the LEC. I get mad.
Yeah, I don't think it was that big a deal.
Nobody's gonna remember like him going anyway. Like it's one day of LEC.
Yeah, exactly.
Speed. Like, and I hope they will reinvite him at some point. Like because people changed. Title One's banned, and it was like, you know, like not accepted anywhere. No, like Riot uses him like as much as they can.
Yes.
I just feel like it's like I don't want promotion of toxicity, but if Title One that is known to be borderline toxic most of the time can get that much praise on like the show, like I mean, why not trying with other players that have their own personality? Nobody. Otherwise, you're just gonna end up with like a bunch of very like smooth people with no personality, and people are going to complain. People will complain regardless, you know?
Yeah, of course. Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.